Hello, my name is Ahmed, and I'll be presenting my final project. The building I chose is Tama Art Library, and before I start, I'd like to thank these guys as they have provided some documents that were very helpful in modeling this building. So the building at first glance is this deformed rectangle that contains a lot of these small arcs. So it's a deformed rectangle with a lot of small arcs. And upon further examination, you'll notice that these small arcs are actually parts of bigger circles. So if you look at the big picture, they're just a bunch of circles intersecting with this deformed rectangle. As for the process or the logic behind the arcs, basically between each point of intersection, an arc is created. And that's the simplest way I can explain the building. However, there are a few instances where this logic does not continue, and I'll explain it in a bit. So moving on to Grasshopper, I first created the boundary curve, the outline of the building. And then I got the circles, and as you can see, they all have sliders, so you can change the position, the size, and it will update automatically. I then had to change the seam or the position of the seam of each circle just to make sure when I cull or trim the curves that I'll get these arcs inside the boundary without having to flip any of the curves. I got the curves, now it was time to shatter them, but I had to cull out the invalid arcs or the half arcs depending from which side you're seeing them. So I took the interior arcs, the normal ones, not the half arcs, and decided to start creating the arc using Kangaroo. So I created the surface, and then I added a few points to analyze where the curve starts and ends, divided the line, and then added it to the bouncy solver so it can calculate or somehow visualize that arc. But in the end, I didn't end up using it because it wasn't the shape I wanted. I'm sure there's a way, but due to time constraints, I wasn't able to figure it out. I decided it was easier to go on and control the points by myself. So I decided that the arc will have 5 control points and it will be drawn through them. It's basically the same process as Kangaroo, but instead of Kangaroo creating the arc, I'm just pulling the points. So these are the surfaces, and after pulling the curve that I created, not the Kangaroo one, they get trimmed, and I offset the surface a bit to give it some thickness. The same process goes on for the exterior curves, and the same process goes on for the half arcs. So the problem with the half arcs is that in some instances, some points of intersection that are on the periphery, the boundary of the building, they're culled out, and the arch skips them. So if you were to apply an interior arc to that culled point, it would snap and appear in the middle of a window. As for the corner joints of the facade, there was something that seemed a bit off, and that was the corner. It wasn't offsetting correctly. There was this sort of a missing square, so I created this definition just to fill in that missing polygon. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but upon research I noticed that the building actually sat on a slope, and it's a very, very slight slope, but it was a fun challenge to try out. So I basically created the slope and then pulled in the face boundaries of the faces of the bottom faces of the B-rep set, or the geometry that I created. So this is the final look of the building, and there is one thing that I forgot to do, which is to pull in the two things actually, and they're all related to the glass, and that is the mullions, which is an easy fix, just subdividing the surface and pulling in the bottom face of the bottom glass extrusions or surfaces. And one thing I didn't mention before is that all of this definition is controlled parametrically, so I can go here and I can change the height and it would update. It's just lagging a bit because there are a lot of batteries connected. And I can change also the width of the column, and it would also update. And that concludes my project. Thank you for listening, and I'll leave you with the final thing that I did, which is the animation of the building.